Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International.
Authorities in the Australian state of Queensland say that they're searching for at least 3 unknown suspects this week after they were allegedly responsible for carrying out 2 armed robberies at convenience stores, one of which was thwarted when an employee fought back. According to reports, the situation began sometime during the early hours of July 10th when the suspects pulled up to a gas station in the town of MARIAN. Upon arriving, 2 of the suspects exited the vehicle and headed towards that gas station's convenience store, while one stayed behind. The vehicle in question was a Volkswagen that had allegedly been stolen. Video surveillance recorded from inside the station shows that when the 2 suspects entered, they were armed with a meat cleaver and another knife. They proceeded to wave the weapons around at the 37-year-old clerk behind the counter, demanding that he hand over money from the cash register. What the suspects apparently hadn't anticipated, though, was the 37-year-old employee fighting back. He refused to hand over any of the business's money and instead immediately picked up the metal stool he was sitting on and raised it defensively over his head. He then chucked the stool at the closer of the 2 suspects who had walked around behind the store's counter. After that, the knife-wielding robbers ran back to their stolen vehicle and all 3 of them fled the scene. Unfortunately, while the courageous employee in Marion was able to thwart the robbers' first crime that night, the suspects apparently weren't willing to give up that easily. A little while later, police were called to a second convenience store in the neighboring city of Mackay, where the same group of robbers had struck. This time there was no employee around to defend the place, so the suspects had easily been able to break in by smashing the glass on the front door. It's unclear what the group took once inside, with reports simply stating that they had damaged and stolen property. Though police arrived too late to catch the robbers, they were able to connect them to the first incident in Marion thanks to surveillance video. In particular, one of the robbers was wearing the same distinctive white round-brimmed hat and red gloves at both crime scenes. At around 7 a.m. the following morning, the stolen Volkswagen the group had used to commit the crime was found in the suburb of West Mackay in a, quote, burnt-out condition. Police are now requesting the public's help in solving the case and are asking that anyone with information about the 2 incidents come forward. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing.
Authorities in the Italian region of Campania say that a 23-year-old American tourist and 3 of his relatives are facing possible charges this week after he fell into the crater of an active volcano in a forbidden area while trying to retrieve his cell phone. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the morning of July 9th, when the 23-year-old from Baltimore, Maryland, whose name has not been released, decided to visit Mount Vesuvius near the city of Naples. However, upon arriving at the volcano, instead of sticking to the proper routes designed for sightseers, the 23-year-old and his 3 family members allegedly decided to bypass the visitor turnstiles in order to avoid paying an entry fee. They then proceeded to hike to the summit of the volcano on a forbidden path, ignoring multiple signs that clearly warned of extreme danger and that the area was out of bounds. When the 23-year-old reached the summit of Vesuvius, he reportedly attempted to take a selfie, but lost his grip on his phone, which fell into the volcano's crater. Apparently deciding to push his luck even further, the man allegedly attempted to maneuver down into the crater to retrieve his phone, only to fall several meters in the process. Luckily for the 23-year-old, Vesuvius guides were quickly able to make it to the scene and descend down to where he was with proper equipment. A mountain rescue helicopter was also deployed, and soon the man was brought back to safety. He was treated for multiple cuts, bruises, and scratches that he had sustained to his back, hands, and arms, though declined to go to the hospital. Because the 23-year-old and his family members were breaking the law at the time of the accident, multiple sources state that they could now be facing charges for offenses such as invasion of public land. Reports are a bit unclear, however, as some state that the 23-year-old has already been charged, while others say that a decision has yet to be made by local prosecutors. In any case, it seems that things could have turned out much worse for the 23-year-old. The rocks where he fell were extremely jagged, and rescue attempts near volcanic craters are reportedly risky due to the high likelihood of ground collapse.
Authorities in the Argentine province of Mendoza say that they're searching for a young mother's killer this week after she was lured from her home with the prospect of a job and brutally murdered. According to reports, the incident began sometime on July 3rd, the same day that 22-year-old Carla Agostina Triga was celebrating her son's 4th birthday. After throwing a party for the child, Carla left her home in the city of San Martin to head to a job interview for a position as a nanny that she had heard about on Facebook. Friends and family say that this was not out of character for the young mother, who was extremely motivated to build a better life for her and her son. She had been working hard at a bakery while also attending night classes to finish high school, so when the opportunity for a potentially well-paying job opened up, she had jumped at the chance. What was extremely out of character for Carla, though, was that she never came back. By around 10:25 p.m. that night, Carla's grandmother was starting to get worried about her and attempted to message her through WhatsApp. The grandmother claims that she saw that Carla was online and that her messages were being read, but received no response. Eventually, Carla went offline. At that point, the grandmother called the police. After receiving the report that Carla was missing, a search effort was launched, in which officers on the ground were assisted by dogs and drones. Security camera footage from the area was also reviewed, revealing that Carla had last been seen at a park on the outskirts of town. Sadly, the search for Carla came to a tragic end 3 days later, when her body was found in an abandoned shed roughly 4 kilometers away from where she had last been seen. She had been beaten and stabbed to death. Based on an autopsy conducted on the remains, investigators were able to establish that Carla was likely killed just hours after leaving her home. Currently, it appears that little progress has been made towards finding Carla's killer. Authorities are still trying to track down the person behind the supposed job offer that the 22-year-old received, though so far have been unsuccessful. However, some reports have alleged that police believe the killer could have been someone who knew Carla, and have even gone so far as to suggest that the culprit might be her ex-boyfriend. These same reports state that Carla ended their relationship because of alleged domestic violence. While it's unclear if police have yet spoken to the ex-boyfriend, authorities have said that they're still trying to track down Carla's cell phone. They hope that the device will help to reveal crucial information about the crime. At the time of this recording, the case is still under investigation.
Representatives from London's Metropolitan Police say that they are searching for the culprit behind a daring bank heist this week, after an unknown man posing as a security guard managed to walk out of the branch's front doors with £150,000. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on July 5th, when the male suspect walked into the Brixton branch of Santander Bank. The man was wearing a uniform that included a helmet and visor, and claimed that he worked for the security company G4S, and that he was there to do a routine cash pickup. He then showed what is believed to have been a fake ID to employees at the bank in an attempt to show that he was legitimate. Apparently persuaded by the man's phony outfit and credentials, staff proceeded to hand over 6 cash boxes, each of which contained £25,000, or about $29,000 US. They finally became suspicious after the man never returned to sign for the boxes, though by then it was too late. The suspect was gone, taking the £150,000, or roughly $177,000 in cash, with him. It's believed that he had a getaway driver waiting for him around the corner. According to authorities, there were other red flags about the suspect that employees should have noticed sooner. For starters, he allegedly wasn't wearing a G4S uniform, and when handling the cash boxes, he took them out 2 at a time, instead of handling them one by one like a real security guard would have. This trademark has caused some to refer to the heist as the Noah's Ark job, referring to the 2x2 way the suspect took the boxes. Though the cash boxes usually have die packs in them that ruin the banknotes inside if opened improperly, authorities believe that the suspect might have found a way around this. In fact, several reports state that investigators are currently operating under the theory that someone with inside information about the bank was part of the heist. At the time of this recording, though, no arrests have yet been made. The situation is still developing.
Authorities in the Indian state of Maharashtra say that a 32-year-old man has been arrested and is facing charges this week after he was allegedly busted for ripping out several pages from his passport. According to reports, the incident began sometime on July 7th when 32-year-old Samdarshi Yadav tried to board a flight to the Maldives at the Mumbai International Airport. Everything was fine until officials took a look at the 32-year-old's passport, only to discover that at least 10 pages were missing. Though Samdarshi argued that the pages had fallen out due to loose binding on his passport, authorities didn't buy it. This was apparently because specific clusters of pages appeared to be missing, while everything else was intact. Officials now say that they believe Samdarshi deliberately ripped these pages out of his passport in order to hide his travel history from his wife. In particular, it's alleged that he was trying to hide several trips to Thailand that he had taken ahead of their wedding in 2019. Exactly what Samdarshi was doing in Thailand that he desperately wanted to try and erase, we'll leave up to you to decide. Needless to say, given that tampering with a passport is against numerous laws, Samdarshi did not make his flight to the Maldives. Instead, he was arrested at the airport and slapped with several charges including forgery, cheating, and violating the Passport Act. He has since been released from custody on a 25,000 rupee, or roughly $313 US, bail.
Authorities in the Malaysian state of Johor say that they are investigating a viral road rage incident this week after a minor vehicle collision at a land border crossing caused a woman to lash out against another car full of people. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on July 9th at the Tuas Second Link Bridge, one of two land-accessible border crossings which connects Singapore to Malaysia. As usual, the bridge was fairly busy, with cars backed up and inching towards the final checkpoint into the state of Johor. Somewhere amidst the traffic, a Toyota Alphard allegedly tried to make a lane change and ended up scraping into the side of a red Kia. While the collision was extremely minor, the argument which came next was apparently not, with drivers and occupants from both vehicles shouting at one another. Things escalated further when a female passenger in the red Kia leaned out of her window and turned back, appearing to film those in the Toyota. According to sources we came across while digging around on social media, she would later allege that during this time, one of the occupants of the Toyota threatened her son, who was driving the Kia. While we can't confirm this account, what we can say for sure is that this is definitely the point at which the unknown woman lost her patience with the situation, proceeding to jump out of her vehicle and in front of the Toyota. While still filming, she then tried to prevent the vehicle from moving forward, using just her body weight. The Toyota, meanwhile, continued to inch forward, pushing the woman along. Understandably, this caused quite the scene, as vehicles both behind and to the side of the incident began to get caught up in traffic caused by the commotion. Things finally hit their climax when the woman, who by this point had her back against the front of the Toyota, ripped off the vehicle's front license plate and threw it at the windshield. The woman was then briefly joined by her son, who gave the driver of the Toyota the finger before both of them ran back to their Kia. As you might imagine, quite a few people other than the woman also whipped out their cell phones during the incident and began filming while all of this played out, causing footage to go viral online in both Singapore and Malaysia. While nothing official seems to have happened as a result of the incident at the time of this recording, police in Johor have said that they are currently investigating under Section 427 of the Malaysian Penal Code. This states that any of those guilty of mischief and damages that equate to about $6 US or over could face a fine and a jail sentence of up to 2 years.
Authorities in the South African province of Gauteng say that at least 15 people are dead this week and several others are injured after a terrifying shooting at a bar in the township of Soweto. According to reports, the incident took place shortly after midnight on Sunday, July 10th, when a group of gunmen opened fire on patrons at the bar, which is located in the township's Orlando East neighborhood. Multiple weapons were used during the attack, and sources state that more than 130 rounds were fired. The suspects then fled the scene in a white minibus. 15 people were later confirmed to be dead, while at least 8 others were also allegedly hospitalized with gunshot wounds. Little has been released about the victims, though some sources state that they ranged in age from 19 to 35 years old. Unfortunately, even though it's been several days since the tragic incident, it appears that the situation on the ground is chaotic, as reports seem to offer conflicting information about the shooting. Early reports suggested that the crime may have been targeted, while others have since stated that the victims were shot at random. Some sources suggest that police are looking for 5 suspects in connection with the case, while many other reports have offered no information about the alleged attackers. Perhaps the most contentious aspect of the story thus far, however, concerns the government and police response to the incident. Some reports that we came across have alleged that it took officers hours to arrive at the crime scene, saying that this is a common problem in the area where the crime took place. The Nonzamo informal settlement, where the bar is located, is said to be one of the poorest areas of Soweto, a sharp contrast to many other areas of the township, which included places such as the former home of ex-president Nelson Mandela. This week's tragic shooting comes at the same time as 2 other similar incidents in the area, which have caused renewed outrage from many who say that the country's government and law enforcement are not doing enough to address violent crime. As of Sunday's incident, so far no motive has been established behind the attack. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing.
People across Japan are in mourning this week after the country's longest-serving former prime minister was assassinated during the middle of a speech in support of a fellow party member. According to reports, the incident took place on the morning of July 8th, when 67-year-old former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was giving a stump speech outside of a railway station in the city of Nara. The speech was for a candidate running in the upcoming House of Councillors election, which, for those unfamiliar, is sort of like the Japanese equivalent of the Canadian Senate. As Abe was delivering his remarks at around 11:30 a.m. that morning, he was approached from behind by the shooter, later identified as 41-year-old Tetsuya Yamagami. Yamagami was armed with a boxy-looking homemade firearm equipped with 2 barrels, and proceeded to fire 2 shots at Abe, after which the politician fell to the ground. Though emergency service workers rushed to save Abe's life following the shooting, according to reports, he was showing no vital signs as early as 3 minutes after the attack. He was airlifted to the Nara Medical University Hospital in Kashihara soon after, though sadly was pronounced dead just after 5 p.m. that afternoon. As for Yamagami, he was quickly arrested at the scene. His home was later searched, during which time authorities reportedly recovered several other homemade firearms and explosives. When interviewed, Yamagami was reportedly quite direct with investigators. He claimed that the shooting had nothing to do with Abe's political beliefs, but rather he blamed the former prime minister for what he believed were his links to a religious organization that Yamagami had a grudge against. The 41-year-old claimed that this group, later identified as the Unification Church, had ruined his family's finances after his mother donated a huge sum of money to them. According to further reporting we could find on this angle of the story, the Unification Church was founded in 1954 in South Korea by a man named Sun Myung Moon. Yamagami said that he had originally intended to go after Moon's widow, though changed his plans because she had stopped coming to Japan due to the pandemic. He also allegedly scrapped a second plan to travel to South Korea to carry out an attack because he thought that he wouldn't be able to flee the country afterwards. Eventually, Yamagami decided on Abe, believing that he was somehow linked to the organization, though it's not clear in what way. At the time of this recording, this is really all we know about Yamagami's alleged motive. Even the few additional details that have been reported about his personal life don't seem to offer much insight. According to several people that knew him when he was younger, Yamagami was quiet but not a loner in school, and was good at both sports and academics. He served for 3 years in Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force beginning in 2002, and most recently worked for a factory in western Japan for about a year and a half. His employer stated that he was shocked to learn that Yamagami was behind the crime, as up until the time he quit his job in May, he had never had a problem with him. As for the victim of the crime, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, it's already become abundantly clear from the outpouring of grief that his murder will leave a lasting scar on Japan. While his time as the country's leader was reportedly not without controversy, he was also beloved by many, and was particularly known for his work to revitalize the nation's economy, policies which were colloquially termed Abenomics. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing. That brings us to the end of this edition of Crimes of the Week International. If you're a fan of the new series, don't forget to tell us in the comment section below. While you're there, make sure to subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest videos. Thank you for watching.